I'm Audrey Sato, your AWA+D president. You might not know this, but AWA+D is an almost 100-year-old organization with a mission to support career advancement for women in the built industry. I'm so proud to be here as your president to honor this history and work toward further change. I've literally laughed and cried over Zoom with you over these last few months, and I feel so fortunate to be supported by my AWA+D tribe. We planned this year's symposium around the theme of resilience, particularly exploring how vital it is to our survival as individuals, neighborhoods and communities, and as a global society. Today's topic, creating a career, creating a legacy, is just one part of a larger 6-part series. So we're kicking it off with the first 2 sessions of personal stories, followed by presentations about community resilience, and ending with presentations from AWAF, our sister organization with a legacy of awarding scholarships and fellowships to women in architecture and the related design fields. As a reminder, we're recording these sessions in speaker mode, and we hope to make this content publicly available in the future. At the end of tonight's session, we have an exciting drawing for a $50 gift card to Sip and Sonder, a local minority woman-owned cafe. And for those of you who attend 4 or more sessions, we'll raffle off a gorgeous necklace by Fold, a jewelry company founded by local architect and AWA+D board member, Taryn Moore. So stick around. I hope someone, I'm sure, well, someone will win it. I wish it could be me. It won't be. And I'd like to just, before we begin, take a moment to thank our annual sponsors, Atomic Irrigation, Shimahara Visual, and Trajan Photography. Also, thank you to our Symposium Planning Committee, Meg Coffey, Sarah Garina, Alejandra Ramirez, Marisa Kurtzman, Pam Leone, and Stephanie Reich. Stephanie will now introduce our speakers.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Reich, architect and urban designer with the City of Santa Monica. I've been an AWA+D member for more years than I'd like to admit, since the 1990s. And it's a joy to be part of this organization that gives me so much pleasure and support. Tonight, I'm thrilled to introduce these 2 amazing architects. Barbara Flammang is a founding partner of KFA. She's recently been elevated to AIA Fellow, a long time coming. We're glad it finally arrived. KFA has been doing such important work in the city of Los Angeles for many years. She's founded that firm with Wade Killefer more than 40 years ago and has developed more than 2,000 units of housing in the downtown core and beyond. She has created a model of a practice of inclusiveness, and her management style is one that has created a model and has mentored many architects and many of our members. She is proud to have achieved a 45 to 55% female ratio and has an extremely inclusive staff. She'll be sharing with us some of her accomplishments as well as her plans for succession, which I think is also a great model. I'm also happy to present Taryn Bone. She's an architect, designer, educator, and Army veteran. She's originally from the Midwest and was with us in Los Angeles for many years while she became a young architect and also established her own practice. A move to Boston made her truly bi-coastal, where she's able to pursue many of her different aspects of her business, designing products, interior design, and architecture. She has been a real inspiration and a model in networking and really branching herself and her office out. And I think she's also created a model to learn from. So we'll hear a 10-minute presentation from each, and we'll have a great conversation with the 2 panelists, and then we'll all join the conversation. So welcome and thank you both very much. And Barbara, take the floor.
Okay. So. Oop, it's my granddaughter, sorry. Not sorry for showing you my granddaughter, by the way. Just saying. Okay, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. So, our profession, architecture, it is by definition an optimistic profession, right? We build things, it's great. We turn nothing into something, or we take something and make it even better. We house people, our work keeps people safe. We design spaces for enjoyment, for enlightenment, and we work to make our neighborhoods better and make our cities better. But bad news, it's also a cyclical profession. And I've been through a lot of ups and downs over the years. I worked for a lawyer for a while in 1975 when the job market was really tight. We didn't move into a house we designed in 1988 because our income just tanked. In 2008, we got a jaw-dropping call from a developer who owed us a boatload of money, and he just said, can't pay you. I had to lay off 20% of our staff one afternoon in 2009. But better times inevitably followed the challenging times, and for the past 40 years, I've found that resiliency does pay off, and that legacy is possible when it is thought of as a process, just like putting a building together. It's thoughtful, it's intentional, it's contextual, and it's shaped by both opportunity and constraint. So in creating and growing my firm, our firm, my guiding principle has always been to create and foster an environment where people can do their best work. I'm also convinced that you have to trust and challenge people to believe in themselves. And you have to expect a lot from them. They need to know that they are in charge of their success, no one else is. I also believe that legacy is defined by the success of others. I'm very proud that 2 longtime employees of KFA became partners a few years ago. 2 of the 5 partners are women, 8 of the 9 associates are women, and 8 former employees have doubled down on their optimism and started their own firms. 2 alumni of our firm, Angie Brooks, founder of Brooks and Scarpa, and Karin Liljegren, founder of Omgivning, are fellows in the AAA. So I'd like to share with you a few slides here that show the growth of our firm, number of employees, along with projects of roughly the same time period. So they represent both pinch points and milestones in our growth. The pie charts show how I have strived to build an equitable and diverse practice over the last 40 years. So in the pie charts, as you can see, the light blue is female minority, people of color, dark blue is female non-minority, light green is male minority, people of color, dark green is male non-minority. So in the late 1980s and early 90s, we cultivated work in Las Vegas. A good friend of ours moved there and she eventually became the mayor. So we got a lot of good connections from that. We designed a number of single family residences, and we also completed a school and 2 libraries for Clark County. This civic work really helped us lay a foundation for doing the same type of project back in California. Because of licensing reasons, I had my own firm. All these projects were done by Barbara Flammang architects. The work was great, but it got a little intense. Get on the 6 a.m. flight, come home on the 6 p.m. flight for, I don't know, every other week for a couple of years. It just got a little intense, and I'm not a gambler, so spending the night had absolutely no appeal. Plus, I had 2 small children. So in stark contrast to this work, about the same time, we completed our first affordable housing project, the Mary Andrews Clark Memorial Home for Working Girls. Don't you love that name? It opened in 1912. Next life, it was a YWCA. And then prior to its closing, after the Whittier earthquake in '87, a location for adult films. But now the Mary Andrews Clark Hall provides 151 units of affordable workforce housing in a neighborhood where the need is great. This building is listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. So our affordable work continued into the 90s. The 40-unit Palmview Apartments in West Hollywood was one of the first projects in LA for people with HIV/AIDS. There were two 80-year-old craftsman bungalows you can see here on the site. They had to be saved, so we dismantled them, stored them offsite, and then reassembled them over the parking garage to serve as community rooms for the residents. We went to the 10-year anniversary of this project, and I was walking around the courtyard, and I noticed in many of the patios that a lot of the plants were really mature, and all the patio furniture looked really comfy and well lived in. You know, indeed, many of the original residents still live there. They were resilient and they were healthy. The Edward Hotel and the Senator Apartments were some of the first projects we did in the Skid Row neighborhood. They're SRO units. The residents have sinks in their rooms. You know, it's pretty modest. Bathrooms are down the hall, but they provide safe and secure places to live. So in 1999, we completed the Old Bank District in downtown LA. This was the adaptive reuse of 3 early 1900s office buildings into housing. 430,000 square feet, 235 apartments. So everybody thought the developer, Tom Gilmer, was absolutely crazy and that he would fail. Who would want to live in the dreary pedestrian-free zone of downtown LA, right? Turns out a whole lot of people did. So how did we build on the success of the Old Bank District? We figured out that we could help create the marketplace that would bring clients to us. So in 2000, we did a pro bono survey with the LA Conservancy to identify other buildings in the historic core that would be suitable for housing. So once developers were made aware of what the opportunities were, we were right there first in line to help them. So we were fortunate to get in on the ground floor of all the revitalization of downtown LA and to create housing in such beautiful buildings as the Eastern Columbia, built in 1930 with its beautiful blue terracotta facade and that gorgeous neon lit clock tower. And the Pegasus, we designed the apartments around 2 existing light wells, preserving the historic corridors of this bold international corporate style building that was constructed in 1949. So to date, we've completed 46 projects in downtown LA, including thousands of affordable and market rate apartments and nearly 700 hotel keys. In 2005, we won an invited competition to design the Lafayette Library and Learning Center in Northern California. So that, going back to that early civic work in Las Vegas, and plus some additional libraries that we did in LA, it helped us to build and be able to win this competition. The design embraces the slope topography of the site, defining a pedestrian street that winds through the entire project, connecting library patrons, customers of the on-site cafe, and students walking home from the nearby middle school. I really enjoyed working on this project because the community was really super involved with the design, and they had to raise millions of dollars in order to get it built. So fast forward, plus or minus 10 years, I mean, we definitely dipped. It was similar size between 5 and 15, but obviously we dipped during the recession. But during that sort of 2008 to 2010 period, we were able to stay afloat with quite a few affordable housing projects. So Hollenbeck Terrace in Boyle Heights is a transformation of an aging hospital and nurses dormitory built by the Santa Fe Railroad in 1924. The building sat vacant for over 20 years, and it was adjacent to this park, and it was really an eyesore in the neighborhood. But now the project provides 123 one-bedroom apartments for formerly vulnerable and housing insecure seniors. Talk about resilient. This is the new Pershing Apartments here, transformed the oldest Victorian era building left in downtown LA, built by, or designed by John Parkinson in 1889. The challenge here was to carefully renovate the building, combine it with an adjacent, totally decrepit SRO hotel, provide new underground parking, and preserve the beautiful historic facade and those iconic bay windows. So the new Pershing is now home to 68 formerly homeless individuals with on-site supportive services and a thriving rooftop garden. Last year, we completed the Los Angeles LGBT Center project that's been a huge part of my life for the last 5 years. This was done in collaboration with the New York firm Leong Leong. This is the new administrative headquarters for the center and includes senior and youth centers, 100 emergency overnight beds for homeless youth, 20 suites for youth. They can stay there up to 18 months. And currently under construction are 99 units of affordable senior housing. The podium on the upper left of the image there is the senior housing location. And also 25 transition age youth apartments. And this should be done by the end of the year. The whole campus will be done by the end of the year. So the work that the center does is really incredible, and they are really, really good at it. We just needed to provide the environment for them to do their best work. The project is a celebration of the work that the center, which is the largest LGBT center in the world, continues to accomplish. So that developer that couldn't pay us back in 2008, we were forced to swallow hard and accept it at the time, but we told them, we want to be on your team when we all get through these hard times. So here are some of the completed and future projects that we have done with him since those rough days. He bounced back, so did we. That's it. Thank you.
That was really great. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Taryn, are you ready?
Ready.
Great.
Let me share my screen. All right. Thank you, Stephanie, for the kind introduction. And thanks, everyone. Good evening. My name is Taryn Bone. My business is Bone Collective Studio. I'm an architect and an interior designer and now product designer. I was based in Los Angeles. That was where I started my firm. And a year and a half ago, made the move across the country to Boston. So that's where I am now. Thinking about this talk, oops, went a little forward there. The first thing that I wanted to do was, figure out what is resilience? Like, what does this word mean? Why do these people who I respect think that I'm resilient? Like, what is this all about? So, I go to dictionary.com and it's funny, it's a noun and it has two definitions that mean the same thing, but then when you really parse them out, I found them to be a little bit different. So I thought that that was what we should start with and kind of use that as a string through my whole presentation. So the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. So that to me is like, the kind of like hard, more masculine energy of resilience. And then the ability of a substance or an object to spring back into shape, elasticity. That to me is the more like soft feminine side of this word resilience. But, I think resilience is something that for me personally, looking into these definitions and realizing that other people think that I have personal resilience, it really is important to my life and has really helped me get to where I am today, owning my own business. So starting out, I tried to figure out when this personal resilience came into effect for me. When I was 17, graduating high school in 2003, I found out that my parents couldn't afford college. And literally the only thing that I cared about in life was learning and education. I was looking so forward to college. I was in no clubs. I played no sports. It was only education for me. So I had to figure out how to pay for it. So I joined the Army, which has many levels of personal resilience I think involves in all of my years from age 17 to 25 that I was in the Army. So I got out of basic training, started college. I was going to the University of Missouri to study journalism. And the first year that I was in college, I got deployed to Iraq. Spent the entire year of 2005 serving overseas. That stint there, being a 19, 20-year-old, you know, literally at war, made me realize how short life is and that I should really do something that I'm passionate about, and that was architecture and design. So I came back, I applied to the University of Missouri's interior design program. It was the architectural studies with an emphasis in interior design, and I got accepted. I started doing that. I was doing really well, earning all these scholarships, and then I got deployed again at the end of my, or basically the beginning of my senior year of undergrad. At that point, my professors knew me, they had worked with me, they made programs, they made like my thesis project and everything available to me while I was overseas. So I was able to be deployed in Kuwait, you know, other side of the world, away from everyone I loved and everything that I loved, and still finish my college education. So there were a lot of weird, hard times in the Army, and it's not something I ever thought I would set out to do, but it really did help make me, I think, the person that I am today. So after the Army, so I went from Missouri to Los Angeles. I graduated undergrad, moved to LA, and this was in 2009. So the whole year of 2008, or like half of 2008, half of 2009, I was overseas, you know, dealing with this whole other war that was going on. I didn't know about the financial fallout and everything that was going on around the world, but especially in America. So I got home, I graduated, and I started sending my resume out. You know, I'm like, I'm moving to LA, someone's gonna hire me. It was crickets. Like, as everyone here watching probably knows, people were, you know, architecture and interior design firms were laying people off left and right. So I got to LA, I got a hostessing job at Ugo in Culver City, if anyone knows that place. I was a hostess there for 2 weeks, every day still cold calling, like I was going through the top 100 list of architecture firms, top 100 list of interior design firms, and I finally got a bite. This firm called Wilson Associates is a hospitality interior design firm, and they were gonna bring me on as an unpaid intern. I didn't care, I just needed work. My first week there, they realized they made a mistake. They thought I was a student, and it was illegal for them not to pay me, they said. And I was like, great, I guess I'm gonna go back to this hostessing job. And they said, no, don't tell anyone, because they had just, all the project managers and stuff, they had just cut their salary. They said, don't tell anyone, we're gonna pay you, but you have to pretend like you're still an unpaid intern. So I was like, that's fine with me. So that was my first job in the industry, just a few weeks in. And then I quickly realized that interior design that I was doing and expected to do in this job was not what I had gone to school for. It was really like soft finishes and furniture, and what I had gone to school for was much more architecturally oriented. So again, I kind of like resiliency kicked in, and I talked to the more architecture side of this firm that I was at, which they weren't architects, but they were doing space planning and drawings, and they weren't picking out like pillows and fabrics, which I wasn't interested in. So they took me onto their part of the team, and I got to at least work my architecture skills and my CAD skills. And then that prepared me to, I knew I wanted to get my master's in architecture. So I applied to SCI-Arc, got in there. SCI-Arc was great, 3 years, master's in architecture. And then I went on to my dream job, which was at Johnston Markley. So at Johnston Markley, I was thrown in very quickly into project managing a lot of small projects because I was very lucky. My project manager, she took me under her wing, and in my first 6 months there, she got a tenure track position at Cal Poly. So she left, and she told Mark and Sharon that I was great and I could manage these projects on my own. So I really had no idea what I was doing, but I went with it and had a lot of really interesting times working on all these projects pretty much by myself. But that made me, that and like some other things that I had going on like personally in my life kind of made me realize like, okay, I'm ready. I thought it was going to be, you know, 5 or 10 years before I started my own firm, but I'm going to do it now. And people afterward would often say to me like, oh, you're so brave. Like, and I didn't really understand that. Looking back now, I definitely was, but I just kind of had this feeling that this is what I have to do. Like I was ready. I wanted to have my own business. So I left Johnson Mark Lee with one project, a small project of friends of mine, thinking this is going to lead to another project, another project, another project. I didn't know the first thing about networking. I didn't know much about running my own business, like very loosely. And I definitely had no prospects for future projects. I just thought this one will finish, I'll photograph it, and everyone will want to hire me. So when that didn't happen, again, I had to figure things out. I joined a bunch of different networking things all across the city. One of those was AWA+D, which proved to be very fruitful in, you know, meeting Stephanie and many of the others on this call, and you know, having these kind of mentors available to me to help me kind of like push through. Like at one point, I was not planning on getting licensed. I thought like, oh, there's no need for me to get my license. And Stephanie told me, yes, you have to get your license. And I did, and I'm very proud that I did that. So there was a lot of learning during that phase. So maybe a year, 2 years in, things are really starting to come to me now in Los Angeles. Like I'm making, you know, a name for myself, I'm getting referrals. And then my husband got a really great job offer in Boston. We had to move. So I said, okay, I have these skills now. I know how to meet people. I know how to, you know, market my business, and I'm flexible. That's the elasticity part, I think, of the personal resilience. So at the end of 2018, I moved to Boston and, you know, moved my business over here. I am bi-coastal. I do have projects in Los Angeles still, and that's like another kind of flexible thing that I have to do. I was just talking to the ladies before we started that there are times where I'm up much later than it is. Right now it's like 10 p.m. on the East Coast. I'm up much later than this talking to some of my clients in Los Angeles because that's just the time that works for them. So yeah, anyone looking to move a business across the country, I have some tips for that. Then the last thing I want to talk about is another kind of like place for me of, you know, flexibility in my practice. I mean, there's also teaching. I was doing that in Los Angeles, and that was something that was important to me to keep like a dual part of my practice. But then when I moved to Boston, really this product design, this like tile thing just kind of came to me, and I went with it. And part of that was wanting to have, you know, knowing that like architects are service providers, architects and designers are service providers. So we only get paid when we're providing that service. So is there a way as an architect or designer that you can get paid passively? Like, and so I was just thinking of different ideas for that. You know, there's furniture design, there's product design. So I came up with this tile collection. I pitched it to Granada Tile, and they said, yes, we would love to create this. So these are just some of the tiles in my collection that I created. And I'm really proud of those, and they've really opened up this kind of creativity inside of me that maybe the day-to-day running an architecture business wasn't allowing me. And so with this, I have also started a daily painting practice, which I encourage everyone else on this call to take on some sort of like daily artistic practice. I think that it's really good for our brains as architects and designers to kind of get out of that side of things. So yeah, the last thing, I just have a little quote here that I thought kind of summed up the idea of personal resilience to me, from Elizabeth Edwards. She stood in the storm, and when the wind did not blow her way, she adjusted her sails. So I think that that's a lot of my life has really been that, just, you know, going with, like, knowing that other things can, like anything can come my way, and I need to be flexible in order to get where I want to be. Thank you.
Thank you both for sharing your stories. I feel already so inspired. I wanted to, before we open up the opportunity for questions from the audience, I was wondering if we could maybe open that opportunity to you, the speakers, Taryn and Barbara, to kind of address each other and talk to each other about your experiences. Especially, I'm thinking that, Barbara, you've gone through so many different fluctuations with the economy and ups and downs. I was wondering if you maybe had some insight for Taryn, just seeing where she is in at this point in her career.
I don't know, from what I heard, am I muted? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. From what I heard, I don't know. I don't think Taryn needs much help from anybody. I think she kind of has it figured out. That would be my opinion. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but and after looking at those tile designs, I sort of want to rip out every square inch of tile in my house and replace it with what I just saw, right?
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I mean, like I said, we're in a cyclical profession. We just, you got to get used to it. You have to accept it. You can't thrive in this profession unless you're elastic and accepting of ups and downs. So, yeah, it's just what it is. It hasn't changed in the 40 years I've been involved with it. Kate, you probably have similar experience, I would think. If not, it's just what we need to deal with. But I think each opportunity gives you something to build on. You learn something from it. You use it. I mean, with opportunity and constraint are kind of interwoven, I think, right? You need to accept both of them and learn how to thrive with both those realities. How do you move forward with whatever the opportunity is, given the constraints? That's what we do.
I actually have a question for you, Barbara, that I was thinking while you were talking. I mean, you just have this such amazing, career and all these beautiful buildings. I'm wondering if there was a moment where you thought to yourself, this is when I made it. Was there a point where you thought, I'm successful, I've made it?
No. I think that's dangerous. Because why would you keep going if you think you've made it? I mean, I'm happy that I've been able. I mean, we had some ups and downs, like when we designed this beautiful house, and then we couldn't move into it. But I'm fortunate. I have a roof over my head. I mean, but I think making it is something that is like I say, it's dangerous. You shouldn't go there, because that means you've got no more room to grow. And I mean, I'll admit, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm really proud of a lot of what I've accomplished, but I don't think it should ever kind of have a point in time that says, this is the best you can do, right? I mean, you should never be satisfied with thinking that this is the best you can do. We all can always do more and do better.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping you were gonna say, because I feel like a lot of times young people do think oh, I have to do this to be successful or to make it. But I think the people who persevere are the ones who are exactly like you, who want to always be growing and moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's it. For me anyway, it seems like clearly from the outside, you're both very successful, and in some ways you should feel like you've made it. I think it's hard because, entrepreneurship is so revered and sort of mysticized a little bit, that how difficult it is kind of glazed over.
Yeah, for sure. For me, I mean, I don't have a team at all. I'm everything, right? I think maybe similar to you, Audrey. At some point, you probably have some people working with you, but you know, you're doing the marketing and you're doing the drawings and the client dealings and accounting and everything. So entrepreneurship is not what they make it out to be on Shark Tank.
It looks like we have a bunch of questions popping up in the chat, and I think at this point we can open up, you know, the audience to ask the questions. If you don't feel comfortable being recorded, you can type it in the chat. Otherwise, and Sarah Garina will read it for you. Otherwise, feel free to raise your hand either physically or with the function, the Zoom function, and we'll call on you.
Yeah. Hi, I have a question here from Stephanie Green. This is a great one about resilience. So as a student going into thesis this year, how do you recommend pushing forward in the industry? What parallels do you see from previous hardships that relate to getting through today's times?
I'll jump in. This is different, right? I mean, the ups and downs that I've talked about, you know, we're more concentrated on certain segments of the economy, and you know, the global pandemic. You know, in the recession, we could still go have a drink with our friends, right? And this is just so isolating on so many levels. But I don't know that I would have any other advice other than just to, you know, put your head down and keep going. I mean, we will get out of this, right? We will get out of this. We have a lot of things to do in our community and in our city. We have a lot of problems that we need to solve, obviously, certainly affordable housing and many other factors. So, you know, there is going to be the need for talent. So just hang in there.
Yeah, and I think as a student, like going into thesis year, there's we're almost entering this new world, it seems, right? This world where, you know, this might not be our only global pandemic that we have in our lifetime. Mm-hmm. And, you know, racism is being reckoned with in a way that that, you know, most of us haven't seen in our lifetime. So I think that there's ways that, you know, you could use your creative architectural thinking to try to begin to solve some of these new world problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see another one. Barbara, I'm guessing it was not an accident that your firm has a 50-50 female-male ratio. This is from Anna Harris, I think, I believe. How was that achieved and why was it important?
I did all the hiring, for starters, until just a few years ago. So that's the short answer, short and sweet and simple answer. And you know, our profession should look like who we are. It should, you know, hopefully it should look like our city. I mean, that's another thing, especially in LA. And I know this has been a huge topic of conversation, clearly for very important reasons recently. But I think also that our firm, once it became known that women were successful at our firm, and that was the culture, I think that made our firm attractive to people because they saw that, you know, that women had advanced, become project managers, become associates, become partners, have a lot of responsibility and a lot is expected. You know, I think, as I said earlier, I've always thought it was really important to expect a lot out of people. And they won't disappoint if they know that that's what the culture is. I'm kind of rambling here, but got away from the female thing. But basically, I did all the hiring. That's why.
I have one from Isabel. She says, Barbara, that's an amazing body of work. The Lgbt building, are those green roofs on the building, and are they used by the residents, and how are they working now?
Yeah, it is green roofs, but it's not garden or anything. It's just for stormwater collection. It's not a functioning garden. Be nice, but.
Meg asks, those were interesting pie charts showing that from 2005 to 2015, the firm had more minority women than minority men. Wondering if you have any insight into why that was or is. So your firm had more minority women than minority men.
Yeah, when I put those pie charts together, that really surprised me how how it started to get evened out. I don't know. I really don't. I don't have a good answer. The honest answer is I don't know how those percentages happen.
Here's another one for both of you. Jolene asks, this is a big one. What books, where I lost it, books, resources, practices have helped you develop resilience? So are there any resources that you can, any practices, resources, or books that you can think of that would help us develop resilience?
I have a good book. It's called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And when I read that, I was like, oh, it kind of helped me understand where my grit came from in my life. And she gives a lot of good practices. She's a psychologist, I believe, who has studied grit in people. So
great term.
Yeah. I think I would recommend that don't try to go it alone. I mean, not to mean that don't try to build your own business, but rely on support and friendship and mentorship, and open yourself up to being receptive to help. I think it's hard to be resilient. I mean, it's easier to be resilient if it's a bigger circle than trying to just hold it all in and think that you have to do it all on your own. And so I guess that would be what I would say, is just make sure that you open yourself up to others and other people that can help you.
Related to that, I wanted to ask Barbara and Taryn too, especially given that tricky situation with the developer who didn't pay you and how you handled that so elegantly. How did you come up with that as a solution and find that sort of emotional intelligence? Was it just are you both just innately good at dealing with these awful situations, or do you have a sort of method to arriving at a good solution for moving forward?
Well, we didn't have a whole lot of choice, I mean, he wasn't going to pay us. So what do you do with that? You accept it. I mean, we actually, backing up a little bit, we did foolishly work for him for a while without some contracts. So we just kind of, oh yeah, no, I keep going, and we probably all been there without a strong formal agreement, because we had previous work and we just kind of dribbled and kept going and kept going. So that was our bad, for not being more disciplined. But I think that there was that underlying sort of optimism that this at one point will be okay. This will lead to something, because instead of just totally blowing up and suing and all that stuff, we just said, no, we think down the road, this is going to work. And it actually wasn't too long before it did start to work. So it was a game. We rolled the dice. It was a gamble, but it's paid off. I mean, we've done a whole bunch of work since then, and there's a whole bunch on the boards that Stephanie knows all about. So it was a good decision. Yeah, sometimes you just have to just do something that you're not comfortable with, you just have to dive in and do it.
Yeah, for me, thinking about, Audrey, you said like emotional intelligence. It was really hard. The very first project, you know, I mentioned that I kind of like left my job, had one small job and then nothing else. The first lead that came my way, I mean, I was grasping for it. I really wanted this project. Like, I was desperate. And when they came back and said, oh, this is too much, or we're not going to move forward, it, like, you know, like a knife to my heart. And I think it took many more of those to realize, like, oh, this is just how this profession goes, and not to take it personal, and, you know, it's okay, move on to the next one. So I think it was, for me, a lot of practice and a lot of rejection.
Yeah. Yeah, you do have to get used to rejection in this business, don't you? I mean, you kind of learn that in school, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of what it is.
You both mentioned having a kind of a few avenues for work. Do you find that, do you think specifically that diversifying your work has helped you weather some of the storms, like having a few types of product or projects, or in Taryn's case, you know, maybe a product, or is there any part of that that's helped you succeed or survive, I guess, some storms?
Yeah, I think for me, the first part was like teaching was really helpful for me, helping me lead up to like the year of moving my business. And now with the product design, like, ask me in a few years, and hopefully that will help me weather whatever storms we, you know, still have coming our way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think diversifying our project types really did help us. I mean, the financing structures for affordable housing, you know, are different than market rate housing. So as I mentioned, that there were times when that's all the work we had was in affordable housing, which was great. I mean, almost all the work that we had. But if we didn't have that, I think we would have been in a much more kind of perilous situation through some of the downturns, because it's something that we just started doing, and I should say we started doing it because we really believe in it, and we believe in how that work makes Los Angeles a better place for all of us.
Okay, we just have one more question. Oh, there's another one. Well, okay, there's a couple more. Sorry, there's a few that are just coming in. I got this one from Anna. She's asking, I remember when we talked some time ago about how hard it was to get work, and we were just talking about building some kind of collective. How we could use it to raise each other up when we get projects. And now that you've gone out on your own, kudos. Do you think there's room or feasibility for a collective approach? I mean, it's maybe to weather this new storm. Is there some way that a collective approach could help us?
Yeah, I think definitely I'm seeing in a lot of like colleagues starting to collaborate. I mean, I think collaboration is key right now, whether it's, you know, two architects and designer coming together to get a bigger project, or, you know, I'm sure Barbara can talk about collaborating with developers, right? I mean, I think now might be a good time for those kind of to start. Yeah, I think maybe collective to me means like collaboration. So I think that would be really important right now.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting concept. I think that, you know, in downturns, you're often kind of asked to, you know, look at this, look at that, look at this, you know, feasibility for a lot of different things that would require, you know, maybe an attitude about being a little more open, a little more helpful, again, in hopes that something good happens down the road. But I like the concept of what the caller is asking about. That sounds like, again, what I was referring to earlier, if you can reach out to other people to help you get through some difficult times, everybody wins and something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so I need, Audrey, you're going to wave at me when we're going to stop with questions because they keep coming. But this is from Ashley. She says, thank you both for your stories, your power, and your grit. She says she's digging this term. Taryn, I love your idea of passivity and using your creativity to potentially worry less in light of the global circumstances and the virtual passive nature of our relationships right now. What's next for each of you?
So I think what's next for me is I've actually made a few relationships with some developers here in Boston. One is a female developer, self-funded. She's amazing. And she's really trying to make some like smaller, more affordable housing, like, small scale, like 2, 3, 8 unit kind of places. So I think that that's what's next for me is taking my, mostly residential practice and trying to use it for some good and working with really amazing people.
What's next for me is I'm actually sort of sliding toward retirement, which is going to be a big change. But as I mentioned earlier, we have my husband and partner. We have 3 other partners that are incredibly talented and gifted and very well matched. The 3 of them have a very great relationship, strengths and weaknesses in everybody, which is the total norm of any good partnership, right? So I have an enormous amount of confidence in how the firm's life and growth and success is going to play out. It's really gratifying to see that, and we have wonderful leadership that's very committed to the success of our firm as well. So I'm really lucky and fortunate to feel very, very optimistic and strong about what's happening next in our firm.
Okay, I have this one. Martha asks, having just graduated, I'm reflecting back on the resilience required to present projects in front of jurors and receive criticism and critique, often with an emphasis on what could or should have been done differently rather than what was done well. How do you stay positive, strive to do better, and continue personal and professional growth without feeling that past experiences are failures? How do you process critique?
Taryn?
I mean, yeah, it can be really tough. I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, I don't know who I got it from, I can't remember, but it was just to not take it personally. Your work is work and you are you, and your work is not you. So critiques of your work are just that. And that being said, like, it can still be hard. It can still feel really difficult when people critique your design. And especially a lot of us feel like our designs are our babies, and like, you shouldn't. Don't feel like it's your baby, because then you're gonna feel hurt anytime that someone tells you that your baby's ugly. So.
That sounds like really good advice to me, other than wanting to tell them to shove it, but.
I see Kate Diamond has raised her hand. Kate, do you want to ask a question?
Well, it was really more that we're talking about resilience, and first of all, Barbara, we've been friends for probably 35 to close to the 40 years of this frame, and watched each other survive. The only difference is I laid off 50% of the office at one point, and got very drunk with Julie Eisenberg.
Yeah.
On the same day when she had also laid off
the scotch was flowing that night.
She laid off a whole percentage. Yeah, we sat in the restaurant and wept together. But I also want to say that, resilience is not exclusively about the entrepreneurship of starting your own practice. I learned somewhere in the process that I didn't have the right partner and that I really loved big and complex projects. And I went into large scale practice, and it has taken a lot of resilience and a lot of getting back up on the horse to find the right practice that values what I bring to it and is, I'm probably one of those tough critics who told people in studios things that they could have designed and should have considered. But that's how I push design excellence. And I do take design critique as not personal. My reaction to it is to try to understand where the critique is coming from and to try to understand if they understand the design and if they understand the value proposition within it, and try to engage people in conversations. But I have to tell you that I have been laid off from offices. I have had to move when I wasn't in the right place. I have had to find this. I am the only female design director at HDR. There are 2 other women design principals out of 45 design principals. It is still hard work. And it is hard work for all of us, and getting back up on the horse and finding a way to keep going. Taryn, your story is really, I don't know you the way I know Barbara, but I mean, it's really moving to see surviving and finishing school while you're deployed must have been amazing and extraordinarily difficult just to find the time to concentrate in deployment. Since I got my first experience in the Israeli Air Force, I can't imagine having to cope with all of that. So I think not everyone wants to do, to be the accountant and the designer and the salesperson and all of these. And it's also okay to discover what gives you joy to get up in the morning and go to work and seek that part of your practice. Understand that you know, I know young people hate to hear about dues that have to be paid, but you do need to learn how to add value and to deliver quality and to live up to the expectations that Barbara is presenting. But if you're not getting opportunities in Los Angeles, probably in the middle of a recession, you should take what you can get and do the best you possibly can with it. But the minute it isn't a recession, get up and leave and go someplace where you're respected. There are too many opportunities, and you can find the places where you can grow and where your work will add value. And, you know, I just finished to do a slight plug for Metropolis. Earlier this week, they had a webinar on resilience. Interestingly enough, it was Gabrielle, why am I suddenly blanking on her last name at Perkins and
Bullock.
Gabrielle Bullock, thank you. And a woman who's the head of sustainability for Page out of Texas, and I don't remember all the names. Huh? Who was it?
Jill Kurtz.
Thank you, Phyllis. And one of the questions we were asked was, you know, what gives you hope? And the honest truth is dealing with kind of crisis of homelessness, dealing with sustainability and the terrible challenges of climate change. Dealing with all of these things makes me feel like this is what I went into architecture for. I went in to make the world a better place. It's really exciting at the end of my career to be doing more of it. So, not much of a question, but a real pleasure.
Well, I'd like to jump on what Kate said and end the Q&A with posing the question to Barbara and Taryn, what gives you hope?
I guess what gives me hope is I know that there's a lot of talent in our profession, And I think there's a lot of very committed people that want to tackle these difficult issues that Kate was just mentioning. I think we're up to it. I think we have to believe that we're up to it. We have to remain optimistic and confident in our ability to tackle these issues. And that gives me hope. It also gives me hope that given the recent events of what's going on in our country, that we are going to see some significant change, and our profession needs to do that big time. But I think we all realize that, and I'm hopeful that that's going to change.
The young people, I guess they're calling them Gen Z, they give me hope. Having taught them at Cal Poly, they are like a really great generation, I think. And I think that they're proving it, you know, in the streets right now. And, you know, when they do become architects and people in power, and, you know, they're going to use their power voting. And yeah, I think the young people give me hope.
Voting gives me terror. Please vote.
Well, we promised everyone we would wrap up in an hour, and it's 7:32. We have our giveaway. Sarah, do you want to do the drawing?
Yes. So I'll tell you my method so everybody knows it's fair. I got Google to randomly give me a number, and then from halfway through the meeting, I took these screenshots of everybody's names and I counted down, and the number I ended up on is Gina Welsh. Gina, you're still here?
Yay!
Hey, yeah, she's there. Hi, say wave, Gina. Hi.
Yay!
I'm going to email you the gift this time around. Each one of these will have a different $50 gift card to a minority and actually a Black woman-owned cafe or restaurant in Los Angeles. Yep, I know, so cool. So we're going to give out this one to Sip and Sonder. It's in Inglewood. They have coffee beans and tea for purchase, and then they make delicious drinks. A couple of attorneys thought that they wanted to really create a cool, lively, community-based coffee shop in Inglewood, and it's thriving despite COVID. So we're really excited to support them. So stay tuned for next time. We'll have another wonderful giveaway at the end of next week's talk. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Audrey, are we good?
Yeah, we're good. Thanks so much, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday with Sarah Abed and Carissa Schrock Oyedele. I hope I'm saying that right. Where they will present their stories about balancing work, life, identity, and their passions. Thanks, everyone.
Let's all give a round of applause for our speakers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Barbara.
Thanks, Kate. You too. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.